Hello, gorgeous beings. Happy Wednesday. Good morning. Welcome to the morning show. I'm your host, Marli Ansel, at Marli Ansel on the Instagrams. And this is the morning show where you come to get your daily dose of inspiration and level up into your highest being. How are we feeling? My goodness. Happy Wednesday. Happy almost summer. My kids have one more week of school. Y'all, I read this, no, it was like a reel. It was a video or something, and it was this mom who was saying, "I'm so sick of going or getting up to go to a school that I don't even go to." I just thought it was so great. Now, granted, I don't take the kids to school. Robert takes the kids to school. But I get up in the morning most of the time with them, and then I go and pick them up from school. So we were talking about, just like responsibilities and schedules and all of that, and how during the school year, picking them up from school, it takes about 2 hours out of my day because their school is like 30 minutes from where we live. And so it's about 2 hours in the afternoon. So I have to plan my work schedule around like going to get the kids and like doing all these things, right? And so I was telling Robert, I was like, it's such a toss up though, because like in terms of productivity, because when they're in school, it's going to take 2 hours to go and pick them up and bring them back home. But then when it's summer, then they're just here all day. So it's like, pick your poison as far as productivity, which is actually a really great thing that we could dive into. So say hello as you're jumping on. Good morning. How are you? What do you guys want to talk about today? I have a couple of subjects running around in my mind that I want to bring to you, but what is your vibe? How's it going? Amber said, good morning. Same here. School on the other side of town. Hi, Jesse. Good morning. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, I have two stepdaughters, and their mom lives in what's a little suburb of Charlotte called Matthews. And they go to school in Matthews because the schools are really great. Well, we live like 25, 30 minutes away, which is fine. It's really not a big deal. But in terms of like school activities, it's like, this has take some time. And then when the girls were like, can so and so have a sleepover? We're like, if their parents want to bring them, sure. You know? Good morning, everyone. So, for all of my mamas online, summer's coming. And I'll tell you this, I am trying to, you know what, this subject is coming. So I think this is what we need to talk about. Productivity. Hi, Janelle. Productivity and, oh my God, my brain. Running a business or having a career, being a mom, having to have your like schedule so succinct sometimes. Amen. So succinct sometimes that you have to, oh my God, it's Angela. Oh, I haven't seen you in forever. Hi. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I have not seen Angela since we went to Italy for our honeymoon, which was, you're in the States. Amazing. Amazing. You need to message me after. I need to know where you are. Okay, so productivity as a mom and also while running a business, or you have your career, it's very career focused. It's not the same. It's not the same as when you did not have kids. Amen. So for me, when I came into being a stepmom, oh my God. Like, I mean, more love and beauty and the most gorgeousness of like, I did not know life could be like this full of love feeling. And what do I do? Because before Robert and the girls, it was just me. It's just me. Like at one point, I think I've told you guys this before, like at one point, I would be on client calls sometimes like till 10 o'clock at night. It was just like an all day thing. Now, granted, I had just started my business, was just kind of learning what my capacity was and what I could do and all of that. I don't recommend being on client calls until 10 o'clock at night. So when I came into becoming a stepmom, I mean, aside from the identity death that comes with being a parent, not talked about enough, not talked about enough at all. There is such an identity death and rebirth when you become a parent. And this is true for stepmoms like me, like coming into it all of the sudden. But even when you plan it, even when you plan your pregnancy and you have that, there is such a death and rebirth that happens that is not talked about enough. And it needs to be, because I believe it is such a key component of postpartum depression that we're not talking about the energetic side of it, that you are mourning the death of your maiden. Now, for those of you who don't know, women go through these three archetypal phases: the maiden, the mother, and the crone, or the wise woman. And when you're in your maiden era, it's like it's all about me. Freedom is my middle name. Like, I do what I want. I don't care. Like, maiden independence era. And then when you choose to become a mom, or you come into becoming a mom, the maiden goes through a death, because you are quite literally on an energetic cellular level mourning a version of you that you will never have again. We don't talk about it enough. We've got to start talking about it. It's a beautiful process, because obviously, like, becoming a mother or stepmother is such an incredible thing, but there's sadness with it as well. And even to top it off, more than that, there's the societal norm pressure of, like, you should be grateful that you're a mom. You should be grateful you have children. Like, yes, yes, we're all grateful. And there's a mourning process. There is quite literally a mourning process. And if there's not space for that mourning process, it's going to cause a lot of psychological and emotional damage, because we're not taking time to honor the past. And then Chris bringing up a great point as well. And then when your kids leave home, another mourning process. And so there's this beautiful evolution of life that's happening, that we are told and made to be like, it's just normal, you're fine. Like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not fine. Okay. Like, I'm not fine. But anywho, so when wait, let's see what Amber said. Our oldest bought a house about an hour away, and the second oldest just graduated and is leaving for boot camp. Oh my gosh, in 2.5 weeks. Leaving just the two littles at home who are homeschooled. I feel such a death. Yes. Surrounding parenting dynamics. Perfect. Perfect $5 word. Yes, there's such a death that comes with these transitions. And the unique perspective that I have it was unexpected. You know what I mean? Like, I think, one, it's not talked about enough, but two, when you are prepping and planning to become a mother, there's some awareness. You know what I mean? Like, for most of, well, I don't, honestly, I don't know. But I want to say there's some awareness. You are aware that you are never not going to be a mother again. You know what I mean? And so there's this kind of bigness to it. Like, you have some level of your consciousness and awareness of it. But when you come into it and you are mourning that past independent freedom of yourself, there's this sadness with it. But and slash, you now have to adapt to a whole new level of life. We don't talk about it enough. Oh my God, we don't talk about it enough. You now have to change your entire way of being. It's no longer like, okay, have kids now, bebop a doop up, do what you always did before. It's not like that. And I'll tell you, from my perspective, I tried. I tried. I was like going through this mourning process, completely unclear on what was happening. It took me probably about a year to then look back in hindsight and be able to see what actually was happening. I had no idea, because in my mind, moving in with Robert, I mean, this is my like, there's no way we're not living together. Like, he's my everything. And then having two little girls now, in my mind, it was like, no problem. I got it. No problem. And then I was like, oh, because it was completely the emotional response the energetic response, the death and rebirth, was entirely unexpected. I was not prepared. And what's so funny is I have a very distinct memory of both our moms, both my mom and his mom, always checking on me. Like, this is a really big life change. Like, are you okay? And I was like, I'm fine. I'm great. What do you mean? And then, like, crying on the floor because I don't know what's happening inside of me. So there was a lot of that. But I tried to continue to run my business as I was doing before when I was single and it was just me. And it was not working. It was not working. And you can imagine, if you haven't been there yourself, maybe you have, but you can imagine the frustration, the, like, fear, all of the feelings that, "Wait, this used to work really well like this, and now it's just not working." I mean, aside from, like, physical things, like, how you feel inside. It's really about how you feel inside because in truth, like, my business is you create the content that helps the people, you create the programs and the courses for the people who want to come in and take it deeper. And that's really it. I mean, it's a very simple business, right? So it's not so much about like the actions, it was my will, the will and the emotional state that I was in. I just didn't have it in me to do it in the same way anymore. And it was so frustrating and like full of fear and she and says, "I love that you're talking about this." Yeah, because it's not talked about enough and it really needs to be. I had all of this fear and then it was like because we're human. We don't take the moment to assess and be like, "Hmm, my emotional state is different. I'm feeling things. I don't have the will to do what I used to do. What's going on here?" You don't do that, do you? You push harder. You're like, make it work. Right? If I just do it better and I just do it harder, then it's gonna work. And like all of the cosmos and God and universe and your higher self is like, "Mm-mm, no, that version of you is dying. That version of you is dying. That's why you don't have the will to do it in the same way." And it is such a huge, like, understanding, such a huge revolution, dead. Because what's actually happening is that there is a new version of you being born that's gonna do it really differently. It kinda makes me wanna cry. Like, it's gonna do it really differently than that past version of you. Your values are changing, who you are at your core is changing. And the way that this occurred for me, it happened over a number of years. It wasn't like a light bulb, done it, did it, got it, good. It happened over years where I had to continuously assess, like, is this working for me? Does this align with who I'm becoming now? Is this in alignment with where my priorities are now? You know what I mean? Because back then, when there wasn't kids and there wasn't a husband, I my I could be wherever, whenever. It didn't matter. You know what I mean? Now, we'll like fast forward 5 years to today. Now it's like after school, it's being present with the kids doing their homework with them, it's listening to their stories, it's having that availability in my nervous system capacity, my capacity to be able to, like, if I'm sitting here at my desk, pause. If one of them comes in with all the moms out here know this. If one of them comes in with some, like, nonsense piece of information that makes absolutely no sense, but you must listen to it. Like, if one of them comes in and they have something to tell me, it's the capability to be like, I'm able to pause my workload and just listen to her for 5 minutes, fully present. That capability is all about your nervous system capacity. It's like I've had to adjust, like now at night, it's all about like dinner and family and connection. In the past at night, it was like, what else can I do in the business? Okay, it's either I'm gonna watch Big Brother because that is my what is my guilty pleasure, my vice, Big Brother. I'm either gonna watch Big Brother or I'm gonna like build that sales page for the website. You know what I mean? That used to be what my life was. And now there's just so many other things. And I'll tell you this, I went through a lot of healing, like a lot of healing. Because not only is it a shift to the evolution of how you do life, like in your daily everyday, but it was really it was so heart opening. And my energetic emotional healers out there, heart opening means really hard. Like really emotionally hard because when you are taking that capacity of love that your heart can handle and you're expanding it, it comes with a lot of sadness and taking down the walls, does it not? My heart capacity opening just from the like what's the word I'm looking for here? Like I couldn't comprehend that the girls just wanted me in the room. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I couldn't comprehend the importance of my presence in their life in the beginning. I was like, "What does it matter if I'm there or not?" Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I didn't have that in me. It was such a foreign concept to me that me being present mattered. It was you see what I'm saying? So it was such an emotional journey, this death and rebirth of the maiden to the mother era. It was such a lifestyle change in terms of like how I'm running the business and how I'm feeling, my nervous system, my capacity, my emotionality, what I'm able to handle. And then shifting the priorities because no longer was it a priority to schedule calls at 7 o'clock at night. It was like, no, I'm sorry, if a client wants to do a night call, we're going to have to rework the schedule here because I don't do night calls anymore. Do you see what I'm saying? So there was such a huge standard raising, is really what it was. So that I could have the life that I truly wanted to live, which is not having to compromise or settle. It's not having to say business and dream career or family and being a stat mom. I had it in my head before that these things were separate. It was so deep in my psyche, it was like, "You can do one or the other, you can't do both." And then here I was, destiny, life, fate was like, "You're gonna do both." I was like it put me through such an identity crisis, truly, truly, truly. Okay, let's see. Ange says, in the beginning, my entire life revolved around breastfeeding. I even scheduled my yoga classes around it. Yes. But it's such a beautiful point because we forget slash we are never taught that we get to do our life in the way that works for us. And when you become a mom, it is so vital. Like aside from all of the stigmas of who you're supposed to be as a mom, aside from that, there is so much going on. Like, there is so much going on. I was like, "Oh my god, like, how am I gonna handle all of this?" There's so much going on, like, aside from, like, just school stuff and, normal everyday activities where you're picking up the kids and you're doing the homework, you've got their school activities, like, all of that stuff, and then and then you still want to have this beautiful connection with your husband. You don't want your life to become about efficiency. Do you know what I mean? And that was a real sticking point for me when Robert and I first got together and we were first living together. I was so advert to I not adverse, is that it might be adverse. We'll go with it. I was so adverse to routine. I was like, I will not. I will not be that couple that falls into a routine because it's efficient. And there were so many times because our brains are programmed this way. Like our routine is good in the sense that it creates efficiency of energy and our brains look for it. We look for like we do this and then we do this and then we do this. We do this and then we do this and then we do this. But that is a one-way ticket to a rut if you're not intentional about it. And so there were so many times where I would just like be bursting out of my body because I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I can't do the normal routine. I'm going to lose my mind. I can't do it. I can't do it. I was fearful of the routine versus like being intentional with it. And over time, like it requires such conversation between you and your partner because Robert had to know this about me, which it was very clear. I'm not very good at hiding things. Oh, let's see what Chris said here. I suppose your kids grow up and you move into the crown stage. It is the crone stage. Yes, it is the same. Absolutely. Absolutely. Everything you're saying resonates. However, I'm not in the space. This feels the same in relation to working and business. You have to tell me more. I'm not sure what you're saying there. So, I had to, Robert had to understand this in terms of like I can't just fall into that norm core. Now, granted, this was a wound for me. I was like, I will not do norm core life. I am a magical being. But luckily, he's very grounded and he very much understands. And so we were able to have this really deep communication about it to where we weren't falling into that efficiency routine unconsciously because that will steal your connection. It will. And it's programming that is biological in us that we have to constantly be aware of because we can so easily get into an efficient routine and we lose intentionality. And when you lose intentionality, now you're in that sleep state. Do you know what I mean? Like you're just kind of going with life rather than you are actively creating life. It's like so as moms, especially when you come into that new stage of life, you've got to be in this space where you're like, what do I want this to look like? Isn't that the question? What do I want this to look like? What matters to me now? Because the truth is that what mattered to you when you were in that maiden era is not going to be the same and it's going to be hard. Like it's going to be a hard moment. The moms on here, you can look back. It's a hard moment when the things that used to feel so important to you just don't really matter to you anymore. And it's almost confusing because your identity is changing, you're shifting in who you be, the priorities and values are changing, but your brain has this attachment to who you were. And it goes, but, if we let that go, but if you get really real with yourself, like have a moment where you're like, does that actually still matter to me though? Do you know what I mean? Like, does that actually still matter? What is the most important thing to me? And you got to cut out society with this because the conditioning is real, especially on the moms. Like, you got to cut out society with it because there's the idea of who you're supposed to be, which we can talk about that at another time because I really faced that as well. I thought I had to change who I was to be this perfect stepmom figure. Like I didn't know who to be. So there's the conditioned society rules of like who you're supposed to be as a mom. And you got to take a step back and you got to be like, okay, thanks. But what do I want? What do I want this stage of my evolution to look like? And it might not come all at once, and we gotta be okay with that. This is about really stepping into that adaptive, like, I'm learning who I am at this level while also taking care of all of this stuff, you know? And it's a really big up level. It was a huge expansion for me. Like, in words will never do it justice. It was a huge expansion in terms of, like, who I be. Like, who I be. And when I'm, I okay, when you go through that kind of evolution, there's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of resistance. If you're anything like me or you're a stubborn human, you're like, you fight it because there's parts of your old self that you really like. You know what I mean? There's parts of that old version of you that you're like, no, 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 this is who I am. But once you embrace it and you start to do that healing work to really process that evolution, you realize that those parts of you that you really, really love, they don't like wither and die, they integrate. And so, what we call a death and rebirth is truly an integration and evolution. Yes, there are parts of you that you are not going to want to take forth. There's parts of you that you're just going to be done with and complete with. And that's cool. There's a mourning process with that. And as we let that go and then we move into this new evolution, my experience, what I had was this new level of femininity came online, this new level of power, this new level of leadership, because all the mamas out there know if you ain't got leadership, your kids are running the household. Amen. Like, it really leveled me up in terms of my how I felt as a woman, my power, my leadership, and then it deepened my connection to myself at a different level because there's parts of you that are coming online that you didn't know existed. You didn't know. I didn't know that I would be a good parent. In all truth, I never even thought about it. I really didn't. I really, really didn't. Me having kids is the ultimate definition of fate and destiny because I never planned it. Never planned it. I told my dad before I met Robert, I told my dad, I was like, "Daddy, I don't think I'm gonna get married and have kids." And my dad says to me, he goes, "I understand not having kids, but get married." I was like, "Okay, Dad." And then I think it was literally like within the year I met Robert, and it's like, boom, husband and kids, there you go. And so I never planned for it. So I never even thought about who I would be as a parent or how I would parent. I didn't read any books or anything like that. But this just shows you how life sets you up because of my training and my background in understanding psychology and energetics and emotions. I'm a great parent. Because I get it. Like, I understand what's happening for them. I understand the emotionality. I understand how if I approach it like this, it's gonna create that. I understand that if I do the reactive thing, it's gonna set this up for them later. So I was able to really embrace the parenting aspect of it pretty easily because of my background in training in energetics and emotions and understanding the mind and all of those things. But from a personal level, that death and rebirth evolution of going from that maiden to the mother era, it was difficult. It was difficult. And I again, we don't talk about it enough. We need to talk about it more. Because so many women are going through it, they don't understand what's happening to them. They may have been like bosses, like boss level women in their career. Then they decide to have a child or they come into children as I did. And then you go through this massive emotional, spiritual, mental, all the layers death and the things that used to work don't work anymore. The way that you used to think is not how you think anymore. And it can be a super confusing and hard time if we're not having the conversation about it. Do you know what I mean? So, life changed a whole lot. Let's see what Chris said here. I feel like what you're saying relates to many stages of life. Yes. My kids both moved out in 2018, 2 weeks apart, and I still feel lost. Losing your maiden is so real, but so is your children leaving. Yes, absolutely. So we're speaking to the maiden and mother era here because that's what I have been through. But this happens in so many different facets because we're constantly going through death and rebirth. This isn't just like only a few people experience death and rebirth. We're constantly going through death and rebirth. And life lines us up with these very fateful moments that will drastically change our life. Drastically. And when we go through that evolution, if we don't understand what's happening internally, it can often get mistaken for depression, anxiety. I don't know who I am anymore. You'll say things like, I just got to get back to myself. I've just got to, I remember when, I've got to get back there. This is the language that comes out with an identity death and rebirth. And so, what we've got to do is embrace it from the perspective of who do I want to be at this level? Like, the hard part is the healing. and the attachments and the letting go and the shedding out the energy. Those of you who have seen the spiritual coach training program, this is a huge part of the spiritual coach training program where I train you in how to help clients process through identity, death, and rebirth because it is such a thing. So when you're going through it, it is hard. There is no sugarcoating that. It's hard. And if you've been through it, you know. You're letting go. You're if you don't understand this process, like if you haven't learned about it, you haven't been in my world to know it, you're very confused about what's happening. Like you're like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I've just got to get back to my old self, like these things, right? And then once you embrace it, you start to look at it literally like think about it in terms of seasons. Like every winter, all of nature completely recluses back. And then it is reborn in new form. And so we go through the same stuff. And so when you're going into that new chapter of life where life has forced you into a fateful turn, this could happen from changing jobs. This could happen entering a new relationship. This could happen making a really big decision, like to change your life or moving to a different city. Like all of these huge, fateful life event things are going to push your evolution. But we don't like change. We can say we like change. Internally, we resist the hell out of change, okay? We do. We're like, "Ah!" And so you are quite literally becoming a new person. You're quite literally becoming a new person. You're taking aspects from who you were, for sure. You have a foundation, but you are quite literally becoming an entirely new human. And you have to let go of the old human, the old version of you, if you have if you want even an ounce of a shot at thriving in the new level. I know that sounds pretty severe, but it's really, really true. It's really, really true because we cannot move forward while we're holding on to the past. We have to let that go. We have to say, thank you. I love that past version of me. She was such a badass. She was so awesome. And she is the reason I'm birthing this version of me. And then you've got to put all your energy into this version of you and who you're becoming here. Because if you don't, you're going to stay in this void. We don't have enough time to talk about the void today, but you're going to stay in the void. And the void has its necessary time period, just like the chrysalis for the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. But if you do not embrace becoming the butterfly, like you don't embrace the next evolution of life, then you're going to stay in that dark area and life's going to start kind of closing in. Things are going to get really hard. And so we have to let go of the caterpillar and we've got to step into that, embracing the new level, embracing who you are now. And it's gonna look entirely different. I can't emphasize that enough. It's gonna look entirely different. And as you embrace this process and you start to become that new level of you, there will come a time where you look back and you remember, keyword, you remember the old version of you. And it will be like looking at a totally different human. You'll be like, wow, you remember when I was like that? That's crazy. It will feel like a past life. It will feel like a distant memory. But the point of it is that you're no longer identified with the past version of you. So the more we can detach, the more that we can honor who we've been, the more we can have gratitude for it. And then also gratitude for the uncertainty of change that we're stepping into. Because without it, life would be so boring. Life would be so boring. So, to bring it full circle, in your mother era, it's going to look so different than the maiden era. And I don't care how old your kids are, if you never took the time to honor and mourn your maiden era, take the time to do it now. Take the time, just a few minutes, to just close your eyes, look back, think about that past version of you and who you were, love her, send her love and gratitude, and like, oh, I just love everything about you, whatever it is. And then thank her for bringing you to your mother era. And then start to embrace the power that comes online at this stage of life. Start asking yourself better questions. Start asking the questions like, what matters to me now? Who do I want to be in this era? What do I want to create? Who do I want to represent myself as? What do I want it to look like? Because you do get to craft your own life. Everything that we hear and is ingrained and programmed into us from the world is nonsense. None of it's real. None of it, I mean, it's real in the fact that people say it, but you don't have to take it on. You are the most powerful source of your own life. So you get to choose what life looks for you at each stage. And is it going to be hard sometimes? Absolutely. Is it going to be emotional? Absolutely. Are you going to feel like, I don't know who I am and I don't know where I'm going and I don't know what to do and you just want to cry on the floor? Sometimes. Yes. And it's okay. And it's okay. And it's okay. And you get to decide, what am I going to let go? What am I going to step into? I understand it's not the easiest process in the world. This is why I have so many programs and courses and teachings on this process, because it is such a huge part of our evolution and nobody talks about it enough. So, what a great talk today. And if this is where you're at, please do send me a message. I do have so many different levels of courses and programs, no matter where you're at, that you can come into to really learn and understand this process. If you're going through it yourself, I have a program that will take you through it. If you are wanting to learn how to coach someone else who's going through it, then you can get on the wait list for the spiritual coach training program, because in that program, we go into the depths of what the person is going through, how to coach and guide them. And as you can imagine, it will be so nourishing for your own soul to really understand this process. So let's see. Chris said, I just knew what you were saying was speaking to me, but I didn't know how to language it. Beautiful. Beautiful. That's how I'm going through an identity death. Yeah. 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 And it's hard. I'm going to say it over and over and over. It's hard. It's not an easy thing. But let me say this. Let me say, I'm so happy you're here too, and oh my gosh. Um, the only way out is through. There's no going back. There's no going back. So when you catch yourself saying, I just got to get back to my old self, stop yourself right there. Understand that that language is evidence that you are in a death and rebirth. You are in an evolution. And instead of looking back, because there is no looking back, look back to have gratitude and to say goodbye. Sounds so severe. Look back with gratitude and then understand that there is only creation forward. So the only way out of an identity death is through. And the only way through is to surrender your attachments to the past and start to step into the unknown of a new version of yourself that you are becoming. And you have so much support. You got your whole soul team behind you on this. You've got your higher self calling you forward. You have so much support. You've got Marli in your back pocket. Like, I'm here for you. You have so much support in this evolution. And even as dark and as scary and as fearful and as emotional as it feels when you're in it, the process of emerging out of it, you will be so grateful. You will be so grateful because you will see how everything that you had to let go of was so necessary in order for you to become who you're meant to become. So you got it. I'm here for you. I have coaching and programs that if you need it, and you're going through it for a big reason. You got parts of you have parts inside of you haven't even met yet. There is parts inside of you that you don't even know. You haven't even fully met yourself yet. Like, that's exciting, right? Like that's exciting. That excites me. What else do I have? What else magic can I bring online here? Like, in example, I mean, we'll do this in the more wrap. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'm so into herbs. Never thought about herbs a day in my life. And then out of nowhere in this era of my life, I'm obsessed with herbs. I want to know all their magical properties. I want to know how they heal the body. I want to make my own holistic medicine. Like all of the sudden, this new part of me comes online. My earth goddess witch is like, we must make herbal medicine. We have to. I have to. So you will have parts of you come online. You will meet new parts of yourself that you've never met before. And that's really fun. Thank you. Celebrating your inner witch. Me too. I love it so much. You can see all of my look. We have a Robert made this. Oh my gosh, mirror. This wand here. There, there. It was actually for his Halloween costume, but we love it so much. We just kept it. He made that. Isn't that crazy? Anyway, you will have parts of yourself come online that you haven't met yet, but you will not meet those parts of yourself if you are constantly looking back, trying to get back to your old self. You see where I'm going with this? Oh my gosh, Instagram. If you're constantly looking back, you won't get to embrace and meet the new parts of yourself. So you've got to embrace the process because you're becoming someone you've never been before. You're tapping into powers you've never had before. You're going to expand your consciousness in a way that it never has been expanded before. It's such a beautiful process. The death is hard, the rebirth is worth it. Amen and the hallelujahs. What a good talk today. Oh my gosh. Loving it, loving it, loving it. I know I don't understand the celebration things that Instagram does with the balloons and the thumbs up. Oh my God, I can't. All right. I love you guys so much. Thank you for being here live. Thank you for vibing with me. Again, if you are in this process right now, this death and rebirth, if you are moving out of your maiden era into your mother era, or you have gone through a huge evolution, I am here for you. I have programs and courses out the wazoo that can teach and help you with this process. And if you're someone who is wanting to learn how to coach others through this process, the Spiritual Coach Training Program will be opening for enrollment very soon. So you can get on that wait list. If you have any questions about it, of course, you can come and ask me. It is a 6-month training program, all on mindset, energetics, emotions, and this process of death and rebirth so that you can coach your clients through transformation. It is absolutely beautiful. I love this program so much. It is the epitome of everything I do. I love you. Thank you for being here. Friday, we're going to do Q&A. As a reminder, we're Monday, Wednesday, Friday now. So Friday, we're going to do Q&A. If you have a question you want to submit into the show, totally anonymously, you can submit your question at marliansel.com/themorningshow, and we will read your question on air and go into depth. Or if you just have a subject, you're like, I don't know what my question is, but I want to talk about this. You can submit that as well. I love you guys. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will see you on Friday. Goodbye, my loves. Goodbye.